Welcome to Dark Sorcery. I'm Alfredo Martinez, and I have with me Traci Snow, aka the Viking Woman. Good to have
Yes.
you back on, Traci.
Hey, how's it going, everyone?
It's going good, and it's good to have you back on. So, uh, how's Dark Wave going?
Well, I was struggling for a while. I was having some, I'm going to say, like, I hate using the term mental issues, but I was actually struggling for the past half year, and finally, I'm very happy that I got over the hump. And in fact, today I was able to record my tomorrow's episode, and
Great.
which included you with Ace
Ace
the
the Goblin?
Goblin.
Yeah,
Yes. So we ended up using that video
cool.
for the radio program for
Right
tomorrow
on.
night and Sunday. So just to plug my radio show, I'm
Yeah,
on Valley Radio. I broadcast out of Northampton, Massachusetts tomorrow night well, actually Thursday nights from 9 to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time is when I usually do my live show. And then I'm rebroadcasted on Sundays from 4 to 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And you can also go to the radio station, valleyfreeradio.com, and you can also listen to my Darkwave show for the last 2 weeks that I was on. So it's in the archives.
yeah. For those who are watching who haven't seen the previous video, Dark Wave is a radio show owned by Traci that has industrial music on it.
Mhm.
She also features Dark Sorcery episodes on it from time to time. Um, yeah, but I understand that you had a struggle in Colorado.
Yes. I'm trying not to put too much emphasis on the person that caused my problems.
Right.
The whole focus of this video is actually me and my experiences. And I want to make sure I put the facts, because sometimes when I put my emotions into it, it might cloud the story. So I'm actually very glad that right now I'm actually calm and I had a long day today.
Yeah,
So
I don't blame you.
right. But I will definitely talk about my first not vision, but I had an interesting nightmare that occurred like almost like a decade ago. And
Okay.
I was like writing down notes. But here's the first nightmare that stuck with me. And it actually caused me to develop a very unhealthy fascination with the state of Colorado. And I just don't know why. But
Okay.
here's the details. My first vision was me surviving an attack by two men. I was alone on a boat that was tied to a deck, and there was a beautiful, fast-moving river somewhere in Colorado, somewhere near the mountains. These men were angry with me because I did something. They complained I was a free spirit, and I was supposed to be killed. The river was wildly churning. There was a struggle on the boat, and somehow I ended up in the water. I just remembered that the shade of blue of the water, it was this weird sapphire green.
Mm.
I remember I lost everything in my pockets because I was in the rapids. I lost my cell phone. I lost my money. I lost my credit and identity cards. I lost my car keys. I didn't even know where I was. The water was violent, but after a while, I finally reached calmer waters and I beached myself. And where I was at a fairly small, a typical Colorado town. I got up wet. I was wearing blue jeans and a short sleeve shirt. I was wandering around and I finally saw a payphone, a working payphone. I called my mom and I remembered to tell her to call the police. I told her I was okay, but I lost everything. But I want to let her, I'm still alive. And I was very embarrassed of what happened to me. And that was my dream.
Mm.
Now we're going to fast track to 2020, the day before Thanksgiving. And what happened to me there was not cool. I was staying at Cottonwood Hot Springs Resort. It's it's a very nice place. It has a new age 5, but it also has a bad reputation with some of the locals. And not so much what goes on in the day, but what goes at night. I guess a lot of people go there, you know, to experiment with, you know, to smoke pot, maybe experiment with drugs, and who knows what else happens there. I don't know. I just know that when I spoke with someone later, they said, like, you went there? Why? You should have gone to this place. This place is more classy. You shouldn't be at a place like that. So just to give you an idea.
Okay.
So I was sick, and the only reason I was at the hot springs because for the healing waters. I planned a 4 or 5 day excursion there. I remember the last time I was sick, the hot waters actually helped me, and I remember like the following day, it was like I was miraculously cured. So that's why I went there. And the day before Thanksgiving was my first night there. It was like maybe between 7 and 8 o'clock. And I was just, you know, just remember, this was during COVID night, the beginning of the, we were like almost halfway through the COVID-19 epidemic.
Right.
So there was there's only a certain kinds of people were showing up there, you know, people who were like, you know, we're not paying attention to, you know, the COVID restrictions. We're going to do what we want. And I was one of those kind of people.
Right.
And I don't know what happened. I remembered like, you know, mingling and talking to people. And then I remember talking to these two guys that invited me to play cards with them later if I'm up to it. And then they gave me the room number. Actually, they were actually renting a small cabin near the hot pools. And I said, well, if I feel up to it, I'll stop by later. 20 minutes later, after speaking with them, I finished off my water and I didn't feel good. And I got concerned for myself. And I thought like, oh, maybe I'm just feeling woozy because of the heat from the water. So I decided to get up. And I remember as I was walking from the pools going towards the office, because for some reason I couldn't remember the code to my door. I had to ask someone at the desk. I apologized for not wearing my mask. And I asked them, can you please give me my code? And the guy wrote it down on the paper and I walked to my room. After I punched in the code, I just remember I was just feeling worse and worse. And I'm like, damn, I'm going to have to drink some water or something because I'm not feeling right. The second I got into my room and I bolted the door because that's out of habit, I flopped on my bed and I was still wearing my wet bathing suit. And I had a towel around me. And I just remembered being paralyzed for the first hour and a half. And I couldn't move in my bed, but I was wide awake. And
was it like, oh, I'm sorry to interrupt. Was it like sleep paralysis? Sort of like that?
I was awake. Now, you know how some people, do you know how some predators use Riponol to, you know, whatever research drug that was used on me was not Riponol. It was something else because I was paralyzed my bed, but I was alert. And I was aware of everything. I just couldn't move. I was like, oh my God, what's happening to me? And while that was going on, that damn all-seeing eye was hovering above me during the whole duration, the all-seeing eye. And it was not static. It was like alive. It was living. It almost felt like a soul or something. And the eye kept changing different colors and different shades, and it just kept bigger and smaller, and it just kept like different souls were in it. It was always changing, ever changing. It was weird. And I was like, I don't understand this. I could laugh about it now, but
but not then.
I was like, what the? And you know, I don't want to swear on your show, but I was like,
what you can if you want.
I was like, what the fuck is going on? Is that what's going on? To the people who are watching this, if anyone's familiar with the comic strip The Punisher, and you know the skull that is emblazoned on his chest, that was in the background. All these skulls were just like appearing and just going what the fuck is above me? And I'm like, what the hell? And all of them thinking like, I need water really bad. And the worst part was at this resort, because it's new age and they're trying to push holistic healing, there was no phone in there, so I couldn't call for help. where I was in Colorado, there was no cell phone service.
Oh, man.
So I couldn't text anybody. I couldn't call anybody. I couldn't move. And I just had this fucking, the damn skulls. And I'm like, does this mean anything? And I'm like, oh my God, my husband's not going to believe me. It was horrible. But at that time, I was like, I
could imagine. Yeah.
So finally, after the first hour and a half, I finally was able to get up and start peeling off the wet towel robe, whatever I was wearing at the time. I finally took off my bathing suit, got myself a drier towel, wrapped myself up, and I looked in the mirror. I'm like, oh my God, I am white. Like there was no color in me whatsoever. And I was shivering like crazy. It was not good. And I just remembered pounding like 4 or 5 bottles of water. I'm just thinking like, oh, I could flush this poison out of it, whatever this
shit. No doubt.
Was. It was bad. So that happened around like maybe 8 o'clock at night, Colorado time. It ended like between 1 and 2 o'clock in the morning. And when the drugs finally like stopped, the eye, I remember I looked at that goddamn eye and I'm like, I took my hand there, put my hand over the eye and I squeezed it. I'm like, I had enough with you. And I just remember like, and then I remember like, oh, I made plans. And all I could think of was my plans for next day. I was supposed to meet up with this one person in Alamosa, Colorado the next morning. And this person who was a Facebook friend of mine since 2015 wanted to show me a few sites. And then after meeting up with him, I was supposed to go back to the resort and then go to another resort where I was going to have my Thanksgiving dinner by myself. That was my plan. It didn't end up happening that way. The next day, I ended up going to Alamosa. I barely slept. I was traumatized. And I remember like leaving the resort around like 5:30 in the morning, between 5:30 and 6. And I remember putting on classical music. And as the sun was starting to rise, I just remember it was the most beautiful ride going down. I can't remember the road. I think it was 295 or something like that, going down south and just seeing those beautiful mountains, the presidential range, seeing Mount Princeton or Harvard and all the others, and just seeing the snow caps with the wind blowing. And I was like, wow.
Yeah,
it was beautiful. And I think that was a nice relief for me from after experiencing the all-seeing eye.
Yeah, of course.
I arrived in Alamosa. I managed to find where this guy lived finally, right on the main street. And I texted him and I said like, hey, I'm here, I made my promise, 8 o'clock, I was greeted by his autistic gay friend who I love. He's a really nice guy. Right. And he goes, are you the powerful witch from Massachusetts? And I'm like, what? I chuckled. I'm like, no. No, I'm not that powerful. I'm not powerful at all. I'm a nobody. Come on.
What a reputation.
I guess. I mean, I just chuckled. It was a compliment, but
right.
No, so whatever. But he led me into the basement apartment where my friend, I'm just going to call him Matt, just to disguise his identity. And I went downstairs and I went to his apartment, and at that time I presented him a gift. For some of you guys know 4chan culture. I had a Pepe the Frog stuff that I bought from China, and I was supposed to give it to him the year before, but because of my illness, my husband and I never got to meet him. So I showed up, I gave him the frog, and I said these words to him, and I don't even know why I said it. It's like, be a pure heart and mind. Be a pure heart and be a pure of heart, be a pure of mind and heart, and no harm will come to you. And then he's like, Tracy? And I go, no, my name is Leela. Because he just knows me from my Tracy Snow website.
Right.
And then I'm like, you won't believe what happened to me. I got drugged. I kept seeing his all-seeing eye at me, and I saw all these skulls. And then he starts chuckling. He goes, shows me a ring of the all-seeing eye on his hand, and he goes, I was watching you all this time. I was protecting you. And I'm like,
what a trip.
What?
Exactly.
What? And I'm like, okay, I'll follow along with that. All right. It's a good omen, bad. I don't know. It was like I said, all-seeing eye, trying to make the connection.
Right.
Drugs.
What an experience.
Weird. So the day, now the whole point of me being in that part of San Juan Valley, it's a specific section of Colorado well known for paranormal activity, and that's the only reason why I wanted to meet up with Matt, because he is a very intelligent man. He's ex-Air Force. I don't want to say ex, but veteran. I'm going to put quotations of the Air Force. Actually, he joined the military right after 9/11. So kind of impressive. And so when I was there, when I was in his apartment, I said, like, okay, so what is the agenda for today? And we went to a few locations on that day. The first thing we ended up doing, and this is what the recommendation from his gay friend, gay autistic friend, he's like, you need to go to the stupas in Crestone, Colorado. Crestone, Colorado is known for its spiritual square. And I was like, what? Crestone, Colorado is known for it's a special small, it was a bunch of millionaires bought this property and wanted to create this spiritual area where all these different religions of the world can be represented there. And what the gay guy wanted me to do was actually go to the stupas and see if I can remember what they were. He wanted me to see what was the name of it? Yeah, they're just stupas. There was like the male version and the female version. The female version was known as Terra. The other one was I had it written down. Too many notes. One was it's the Tashi Gorman Stupa. And if you ever saw photographs of it, just look up Crestone, Colorado, look up stupas, and they'll show pictures of it. So here is this gigantic dome-shaped Buddhist temple. I ended up driving almost 45 minutes to this place after being traumatized at night with Matt and with his friend. And we were there and we were hanging out. And I just remember just curling up in a ball in front of it because I was so exhausted, and I started dozing off in the cold. And then then I woke up, it's like, what am I doing? And then the gay guy was like, hey, we got to meet Tara. You got to see this other stupa, but we got to take this trail. So we ended up taking this trail, and I absolutely loved it. There was maybe 2-3 inches of snow at the time, but it was a ponderosa pine forest. And you got to understand, this part of Colorado, I was at the plateau. So I'm 7,000 feet up already. And then here I am at this upper elevation. So I'm probably 8,000 or 9,000 feet. And I'm running around through the forest. Matt can't catch up with me because he's 40 years old and he's been an alcoholic for God knows how many years. And something was wrong with his leg. So he couldn't catch up with me. His gay friend was like a clumsy Sasquatch. I don't know. It was comical, but it was cool. And so I went through the trail. It took, I think it was maybe a half mile long or something, or 3/4 of a mile. And we ended up going to, and a lot of people don't know about Buddhist culture, but there's the female side of Buddha. And the one that they had there was called Tara, and she was represented by the color green. I remembered she represents fertility and stuff. And I just remembered, which was very odd, going there. And I was like, this is actually pretty cool. There's the picture. And then the gay guy goes in there and he starts bawling his eyes out. Matt there was like, hey, let's go outside and let him be in there. he had a bad year, and we just ended up talking. And then after that, he was asking, like, we need to go to see the Witch of Alamosa, the gravesite of the Witch of Alamosa. I'm like, okay, cool. So after we went back to Alamosa, we dropped off the gay guy and we went to this graveyard. And at this graveyard is this really weird tomb. It had a gigantic angel on top. And I guess the legend was that when you visit this site, the date of her death was weird. It said October 36, 1913.
Wait, October 36? Or
yes, October 36.
Is that a typo? There must be some kind of typo, or unless they're saying something that only certain initiates know.
Well, I ended up watching a video earlier today, and I was trying to get as much information I can about the site. There's really not that much information except her time of death, and I guess the date on it is the same incorrect date at the public records or something. It was just something stupid, but she is a local legend. A lot of the locals will go there, or anyone who wants to be spooked. You go up because there's paranormal activity that go there also. So what you have to do is that you have to go there and you have to offer a gift of a penny, something with copper. Right. And I'm like, I didn't have any copper pennies, but I had a Chinese coin with me that I held for several years. I'm like, you know what, this is good enough here.
Okay.
And then Matt, he was like, so do you feel anything? Anything weird? I was like, no. Nothing spooky happened, but that was pretty much it. But here I am at one of the biggest legend in Alamosa is the Witch of Alamosa. I guess the legend was that and I hate the word using a trap because it wasn't it, but she'll lure children of the town and she'll lure them to near the river because the Alamosa River like runs through near it, and she would kill them and eat them, kind of like Hansel and Gretel.
Sort of reminds me of the story of La Llorona a little bit.
The what?
Story of La Llorona.
Oh, I don't even know.
A Mexican tale about a lady who you hear screaming and she drowned her children, and it's Mexican folklore, but it's very similar to what you're saying.
Yes.
Anyway, continue.
That part of Colorado, by the way, was heavily settled by Spaniards, and yes. Okay. So, and some of them go back more than 8 generations. So
wow, maybe there's some kind of connection there. I don't know, but do you have any idea as to why these certain spots in Colorado may be infested with paranormal activity? Maybe they're run on some ley lines or anything like that.
I know that part of Colorado has the national sand dunes, the sand dunes, the sand dunes. They're like the sand dunes. It's huge, and that whole area is a gigantic valley. So I can imagine what that area must have been like before when there were glaciers, and like after the glaciers disappeared, a lot of the sand got blown to the east side of St. Louis Valley, and that's where all these sand dunes. And there's also a Navajo legend, or Hopi, I think it's Navajo, that there were ant people living in sand dunes. I don't know the story. I tried finding it, but I couldn't find it in time. Yeah. But there is a legend about it. People living underground. So, but I don't have any more information. But I do know that part of Colorado is that there is a mountain of significance to the Navajo. The Spanish name for it is Mount Blanco. I couldn't remember the native name for it, but it started with the letter S, and it's like one of the 4 mountains that the Navajo hold with spiritual significance. And that one I think represents the north or the east of the special sphere of influence of these 4 mountains. So that one's a particular one. As a matter of fact, near the summit of it, there is a small stone lodge. I'm not exactly sure how old it is, but it's not made by Europeans. It was made by natives, and it is like 10,000 feet or higher. And in fact, it's one of the top, it was like, it's one of the 5 highest peaks in Colorado. It's over 40,000 feet. And I guess it was used that when they were doing, it was shelter to provide for for some one reason or other, for whatever rituals they were doing or ceremonies. So that's all I know, but it held special significance. Do I know why there's paranormal activity? I have no idea, but I do know that they have cattle mutilations there. A lot of it. It's one of the hot spots there. UFO sightings. I know that it also attracts a lot of weird cults. The last big one, the last famous one was Love Has Won. It was a cult where their leader died in 2021, and I remember watching the live streams on YouTube. Matt would send me would text me, was like, hey, you got to watch the latest live stream from these guys, because they're very smart, and they always talk about the people that run the cult are very smart, but they're like,
you'll have to send me the link so I could check it out sometime.
Oh, but, that channel's gone because the leader, the mother died. She died from cancer, but when she died, her body was kept. Nobody told her. No, she wasn't like allowed to be buried, so they kept her. They mummified her. They had glitter on her eyes, and she was wrapped in tinsel or something, or Christmas lights.
Oh,
in a lotus position. I'm like, and I said to myself, I can respect these guys for deifying a influential member of their cult, but they got in trouble with the law. Nobody served any prison time or anything, and they had to go through this lengthy court process, and I think the charges were dropped. I think the only thing they got in trouble for was disrespecting a corpse or something, or not reporting a death. Like I said, it's
interesting. You had mentioned about the all the paranormal activity in that area of Colorado, the UFOs, the spirits and all that stuff, and Navajos, and we were talking before the video. I was saying that reminds me similar to over here where we have Skinwalker Ranch, where it's cursed, by the Navajos, and then it's also known for UFO activity, all kinds of paranormal activity. So very similar.
Yes. And I think there was a Route 666 at one time. I don't know which state it was, New Mexico. I think it was in New Mexico, where it went to Colorado. Yeah. And that was called the Cursed Highway. So, yeah. And that was cursed, supposedly was cursed by the Navajo. I don't believe it was cursed. I just think it was just the fact that they gave the number 666.
Right. Then that energy associated with that number applies to that road. So sometimes things can happen. Yeah, exactly. Very, very interesting. Now the last time that you had come on, you had mentioned Aleister Crowley. Do you have a favorite book from him, or a favorite something from him that sticks out in your mind?
I did read trying to remember the name of the title. I kind of wish I was a little bit more prepared for this topic. I remember reading his biography. I think it's called The Confessions or something, or I'm trying to remember what's the title of it. But I remember it was him talking about his life story, and I read that from front to back. It was I absolutely loved reading it. Another one I read was Moonchild. I absolutely loved. I had trouble, like, for example, like when you read books like 777 and some of the other works, a lot of it kind of like went over my head, because a lot of it will bounce around between different topics a lot, or everything was like put in a graph, and it's like I'm looking at all this information, like what does it mean? Like, how does it apply to my life? Yeah. Like, how do I apply it to my life? So as a man, I admire him for certain things. Like, for example, I hike mountains. He hiked mountains. In fact, that kind of inspired me to do the mountain climbing. He also was a world traveler. And he was not afraid to try things that were taboo. And he was able to at least he was able to put it, I mean, his writings and stuff were so prolific that you can't help to at least to admire someone like that, because it takes a lot of dedication, almost like Blavatsky. Blavatsky was another one where there's like, with her theosophy, there's so much material, a lot of it is still too complex for me to like, unless I actually sat down with somebody that can help me go
Very
through it. Right.
Yeah. Now tell us a bit about the paranormal scene in Massachusetts.
We have a lot of ghosts, and I know if you go to there's a few good ones. In Cape Cod, if you go to the town of Barnstable, there is a jail that was used to house people who were accused of witchcraft in that town. And this is totally separate from what happened in Salem. And a lot when you step into thankfully the jail is still there, and you can make reservations to sleep overnight inside with other people, who want to experience the ghosts in there.
Right.
As for myself, when I was there, I remember that there was an attempt a while back that someone tried to set the place on fire. Luckily, it never took, so you could still go there. But I remember I was going inside, and I remembered that some people were creeped out, and then I ended up going to one corner, and then someone said, like, I don't feel good here. And I go, yeah, I feel good here. And I go, why do you feel okay? And I go, because that's the safe spot. Yes. I also have Salem is interesting. Unfortunately, Salem, from what I remember 20, 30 years ago to Salem now, has unfortunately become highly commercialized. But I do remember years ago when I was really young, I probably was in my teens going into my 20s. This is when Governor Dukakis was governor of Massachusetts. There was a lady who was good with doing readings, and she was an occultist. She ended up becoming, her name was Lori Talbot, and she became the official witch of Salem for many years, the official witch of Massachusetts, which was the honor bestowed by Governor Dukakis, which I thought was very interesting. And I actually ended up going into her occult store many, many moons ago, and it was actually pretty cool. I mean, it was a well-stocked place. I mean, it had a little bit of everything. I never felt any negativity, and the people that were running it knew what they were doing. And she was, by the time I met her, she was a much older woman, and I didn't get any bad vibes from her. So,
speaking of Salem and speaking of Massachusetts, are you familiar with Christian Day?
Who is this?
Christian Day is a very well-known occult author from Massachusetts, I think specifically Salem. He's actually one of my favorites. Me and Michael Heisen did a video studying one of his books. It's called The Witch's Book of the Dead. But, when I go to Massachusetts one day, one of the spots that I want to visit is he has an occult shop there. And I don't know. I just think he's a very interesting man. I just thought maybe you might be familiar with him since he's from Massachusetts.
Right. To be honest, I don't even know who he is.
Yeah.
So, but like I kind of stay away from, like I said, Salem has become highly commercialized, and
right. Yeah, no doubt.
So, like I said years ago, and I'm from Western Massachusetts, so the occult shops we have out here on my end of the state tend to be more new age. There is a new shop that opened up in Northampton, Massachusetts. I think it's called Crystals or something like that. And I like them. They have like a little bit of everything. So like left-hand path, right-hand path.
Right.
But the people that run it are wonderful people. And I remember like when I was first experiencing my trauma last October, I mean, they were trying to be really helpful because I explained what happened to me, and they said like, oh my God. Well, they didn't use those words, but they looked like, we know what happened to you. That guy violated your spiritual circle. We, and they said like, well, if you want to do positive affirmations, they told me, they helped me pick out like 2 or 3 votive candles, and, because that wasn't expensive, and with some prayers and stuff. And that was the beginning of understanding what happened to me. But no, Massachusetts is pretty cool. If you have, like I said, you can go to like Boston, you can find hauntings there. I kind of like, I mean, I'm in the goth scene, but I'm my own personality. And usually, like, for example, you mentioned that author's name. I just never happened to come across it for one reason or another. And maybe because of my circle, the circle of friends that I have, or just the fact that I'm so busy, because, for the longest of time, I was working, my own job at a factory. And I also had my business I ran. So, it's just, there was no introduction.
Okay. Yeah, I'll send you some. I'll send you some links, and the link that we did on this channel. But
yes.
before we go, anything you want to say about Darkwave Radio? Anything you want to plug?
Yes, Darkwave Radio is on Thursday nights from 9 to 11 Eastern Standard Time at Valley Free Radio. You can go to valleyfreeradio.org and just click the listen button. I also get replayed Sundays early morning from 4 to 6 Eastern Standard Time. And I do have a SoundCloud profile. It's just Traci Snow. Just type in Traci Snow and you'll know it's me. I have this like satanic angel as my avatar picture.
Yeah, I put the link in it the last video that we did. But for everybody who's watching, below the video in the video description, I will have the link to the valleyfreeradio.org where you can listen, and also the SoundCloud link as well. So everybody go ahead and check those out.
How much time do we have?
Oh, about a minute and a half.
Oh, really? We talked for 40 minutes?
Yes, we did.
Wow. Well, I'm glad we had a chance to talk. I didn't even realize I was talking that much.
It was very interesting. We'll have to have you back on sometime soon.
Oh, good. I'm glad this has been a very positive chat. And I hope you got to enjoy my posters.
Yeah, I love them. I love the background. But everybody who's watching, check out Darkwave Radio and like and subscribe to Dark Sorcery.
Thank you.